Hey, today we're gonna master modal verbs. Let's go. So first of all, what are modals? They are special helper verbs that we use to express different things, like ability, possibility, obligation, to give advice, and other things. So we use modals along with main verbs, and we use them all the time. So it's important that you understand how to use them correctly. So we're gonna go through each modal verb and make sure that you know how to use it. But before that, let's talk about some rules that apply to modals. First of all, we use modals along with a main verb. So for example, your modal verb is can, and your main verb is go. I can go. Rule number 2. The modal verb itself never changes. There's no past or future form. It's always the same. Rule number 3, you always use the base form of the verb after modals. For example, can go, can have, can eat, can make. All of these main verbs are the base form. Rule number 4, never use to after modal verbs. So for example, we never say I can to go, just I can go. And rule number 5, to make any modal negative, just use not. For example, I can not go. Okay, so let's start off with can. Can is extremely common. So here are the different ways you can use it. To talk about abilities, things that you are able or you're not able to do. For example, I can drive, I can't drive, or you can ask someone, can you drive? You can also use can to ask for permission or to give permission. For example, can I leave early today? Or to give permission, you can leave early today. Or you can't leave early today, you don't have permission. You can use can to ask for help. For example, can you help me with this? Or to offer help, I can help you. And you can use can when you want to say there's zero chance or zero probability or possibility of something. For example, you can't be serious. There's zero chance, there's no way. Next up, we have could. So could is actually the past tense of can. So you can use could to talk about past abilities. For example, when I was a kid, I could not drive. You can use could to talk about permission in the past. So for example, when I was a kid, I could not take the bus to school. I wasn't allowed or permitted to take the bus to school. We also use could to talk about possibility when there's a chance of something. For example, this could work. It means maybe this might work, okay? Or we could make some changes. This means maybe we can make some changes. And we very often use could for polite requests or polite questions. For example, could you help me with this? Or could you hold on a moment, please? Next up, we have may. We use may to talk about the possibility of something. For example, it may rain tonight. There's a chance. It's possible. Or I may be late. There's a chance that I'll be late. We also use may to ask for permission very politely. For example, let's say there's an empty seat next to me and you ask me, may I sit here? May I sit here? It's like, is it okay if I sit here? Or if you knock on someone's office door, you can ask, may I come in? May I come in? Is it okay if I come in? So you can use may to politely ask for permission. Might. Might is quite similar to may. We can also use it to talk about the possibility of something. For example, I might be late, or I might not be able to come, or it might rain today. There's a chance of all of these things happening. So might is a pretty simple one. We just use it for possibilities. It's like saying maybe yes, maybe no, but we don't say maybe yes, maybe no. We say might, all right? So when there's a chance of something happening, this might happen or this might not happen. All right, next up we have will. Now I hear lots and lots of mistakes with will. A lot of people use will to talk about everything in the future, but will is not used for every single thing in the future. It is used for some things, for certain things in the future. So we use will to make predictions about the future or guesses about the future when we don't really know what's going to happen. We're just guessing. For example, Italy will win the next World Cup. I really have no idea, of course. I'm just predicting or guessing. Or you will get the job. I'm guessing. You might not get the job. You may or may not, but I'm predicting or guessing you will get the job. We can also use will for spontaneous decisions that we make at the moment when we're speaking. We're making these decisions for the future, but we're making them at this moment. So for example, if the phone rings and I say, I will get it, I'll answer the phone, I will answer the phone, or I'll get it, I'm making this decision in the moment that the phone rings. Or if the doorbell rings and I say, I'll get it, I'll answer the door. I am making this decision spontaneously. Or if you're in a restaurant, you're looking at the menu, you decide what to order and you say, I will have a glass of white wine, please. Okay, so you're making this decision in that moment. Spontaneous decisions, you can use will. And we also use will for promises or offers when we are making promises or offering to help someone with something. For example, I will not be late. This is a promise, okay? Or I will pick you up, or I will drop you off, or I will watch your kids for you. Okay, so promises and offers. Remember not to use will for every single thing in the future. When you're talking about your personal future plans or your plans for tomorrow, we don't use will. And I do have other lessons about all of the tenses in English and how to talk about the future, and I'll link those below for you. All right, next is would. Now, would is actually the past tense version of will. So we often use it in reported speech when we are repeating what someone else said to us. For example, you said you would not be late. So yesterday you said to me, I will not be late. And then today you were late and I say, you said you would not be late. You promised you would not be late. So I'm reporting what you said in the past, okay? We also use would very often with conditionals. So for example, if I were you, I would not do that. If I were you, I would not do that. And in this example, as you can see, we also use would to give advice. So for example, I would try something different. I would not do that. I would take the job. I would not take the job. So to offer advice to someone, you can simply say, I would, and a base verb. All right, next is should. We use should to give advice, suggestions, or recommendations. For example, you should stop smoking. This is advice, maybe from a doctor or to your friend. You should try this. It's delicious. You should ask for help. You should practice your English every day. So should for advice, suggestions, or recommendations. All right, must and have to. Let's talk about these two together. Both of them are used to talk about obligations. We use must when the obligation comes from you, the speaker, the person speaking. So for example, I must study if I want to pass this exam. This example is basically self-motivated. The obligation is coming from within me. And we use have to when the obligation is coming from someone else or something else. For example, the doctor says I have to stop smoking. So this is the technical difference between must and have to, but honestly, it's quite natural and common to use have to. So I use have to almost always. It doesn't really matter who the obligation is coming from. If it's from myself, if it's from someone else, I still use have to. Must sounds a little bit more formal, okay? So we often see must in contracts, on official documents, when we're talking about rules or laws. So just keep that in mind, that in conversations especially, it's more common to say have to than to say must. Must sounds a little more formal, so you might use it in your writing or in something more official. And don't have to. Now we use don't have to when something is up to you or it's not obligatory. So for example, you don't have to come if you don't want to. Or I don't have to work on Saturdays, but I work on Saturdays because I get overtime. Or let's say you have too much food on your plate and someone says, you don't have to finish it if it's too much. You don't have to finish it. Or I have an extra ticket, so you don't have to pay. In this example, it's not that it's optional, it's that you are not obligated to pay because I have a ticket for you. So there you have it. That is how you use modal verbs in English. So if you have trouble with modal verbs or you mix them up sometimes, just work on one at a time and make sure you understand all the different situations in which you can use that modal verb, and then do practice coming up with common everyday examples like the ones that I gave you in this lesson. All right, you can practice in the comments down below and I will have a chance to look at how you are actually using these modal verbs. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Thank you so much for watching and learning with me, and I'll see you soon in the next lesson.